Thank you very much.
You did very well. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not Richard Bergstrom. I'll move that. He is our first speaker. My name is Kathy Smith, and I'm going to be moderating this afternoon. So this morning it was IMI 1, now IMI 2. Sounds a bit like a movie trailer. Coming soon, IMI 2. And I think traditionally in the movie world, the sequels are not as good as the first film. But I think in this case, Michelle, you are sure it's going to be, because obviously we've heard the excitement this morning about all the projects, I think more than 40 projects, 1,500 jobs, probably more created so far. An awful lot has gone on, a lot that people are very proud of, and I think the idea now clearly is to be able to build on that and take a slightly different direction. IMI 1 has not been without its moments of controversy, but it wouldn't have a name like the Innovative Medicines Initiative if it didn't have. How boring would that be? You know, you're doing something new, so there are going to be times when people aren't so thrilled with certain aspects. But overall, you know, I think everyone here is a great... It is changing direction slightly, and that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to have a panel debate. You can see we've turned the stage into, it looks a bit like a furniture showroom, because we've got rather a large panel. But it's important because all the stakeholders, that their voices are really important to know what their thoughts are for IMI 2, what they want to see, what's worked before, what hasn't worked, how they want to see this new direction take off, because I think it's basically going to be following in the footsteps suggested by the WHO in terms of priorities for health development. So we'll hear a lot more about that. We've got two keynote speakers. One of our speakers has been delayed, so we hope he'll join us at some point during this afternoon, and we're sure he will. So we're very happy to start. First of all, our first keynote speaker is Richard, so I will put Richard's name back there. Richard is Director General of the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations, EFPIA, and he's going to give his take on IMI 2. Richard.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, everyone who's watching this on the web. Hello, wherever you are. So my name is Richard Bergström. I represent the research-based pharmaceutical industry and a very proud partner in this marriage, which has been renewed with the European Commission. This is something that we are extremely proud of, not just as a concept, but in what it's delivering. And I think you've heard about that this morning. And I'm so pleased to hear my CEO, so I work for the global industry leaders. Wherever they go, they talk about this. And wherever they go, they leave something behind, ideas behind. So now Japan wants to have an IMI project. Next is going to be China. I think that we shouldn't see that as something bad. This is not about competition. The only enemy we have is disease, right? And research is globalized. So I wanted to say that at the outset. Now there are known knowns and known unknowns and all that. You know, there are problems that are really bad problems, but there are also problems that are pleasant problems. And one such pleasant problem is that we're all living longer. We're all living longer, maybe with disease, with disabilities, but we're living longer. I think we have too much, particularly in the financial crisis here, we see aging as a problem. And as someone said, well, have you tried the difference? Death, is that better? And also longevity, something we've always strived for. We benchmark the performance of countries' health systems by looking at life expectancy at birth. And we all know that a child born today is very likely to be able to live till the age of 100. So we're going to live longer, very much thanks to improved standards of living, of course, but with the help of medicine, with medical devices, technologies, and pharmaceuticals and vaccines. But we need to, therefore, in our efforts, and when we spend the 100 billion euros that we spend in the industry on research every year, have that in mind. What are the societal needs? What are the societal challenges? Not only for Europe, but for the world. And this is one of the key things in that differs between IMI 2 and IMI 1, that even if the projects in IMI 1 were the right ones and were there for the patients of the world, that was not explicit. But as we went along, we added projects, and I'll come back to it, that clearly address global health needs. And IMI 2 has been much more explicit in that, following on from the Horizon 2020 agenda, of which we will hear more from Rudolf when he arrives later. So looking to these future needs, there is clearly a demographic development with more people living longer. For Europe, this is a pleasant problem. Problem being that they're not going to contribute to the economy. No, they are expecting the social network, the social fabric in Europe, the cohesion policies that we have, the things that will make us proud as European Union citizens, particularly these days, when we have election times as well. So we have to look after all these people. There are lots of expectations from the population that they will be catered for, that will be looked after, they will have access to medicines and healthcare. We see not only we live longer, but as I mentioned earlier, we see an increased incidence of cancer. We see an extended impact of chronic disease. People are going to be living longer with the disease, such as type 2 diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis. We also know that one of the greatest challenges we have ahead of us is the mystery of the brain. We have the map now, I think. We have the connectome, but what are we going to do about it? The Human Brain Project down in Lausanne and elsewhere in Europe will hopefully unlock some of those mysteries. Good news is that the pipelines are full. We're not surprised to you that these are how you see the therapeutic areas and with the division of the clinical trials in the different phases. By the way, I think 10 years from now, we're not going to talk about these phases, by the way. The way science is going and the way the drug development model is going, thanks to IMI, and IMI 2, I think we're going to look entirely differently at how evidence is generated. When is what evidence generated during the life cycle? When is what type of information the most valuable for physicians, patients, decision makers? Anyhow, back to the slide. So we have a lot of research going on in cancer. That is not only because there has been a deliberate priority set on cancer by national governments and people that pay for research and pay for medicines. But it's also that's where we've seen the greatest scientific breakthroughs. That's where we see targeted medicines, molecular approaches being implemented the first before other therapeutic areas. So we have huge pipelines. And interestingly, we see now a shift in cancer, interestingly, away from biologics. Well, not away from, but the last 2 years, the large majority of new medicines in cancer is actually small molecules again. That's interesting. We see now the projects starting now in companies are about cell therapy. So you move in a certain direction, maybe not because of as a business strategy, or actually I would say it's not a business strategy. Companies end up where they end up because of the science. Whether it's biologics or monoclonals or cell therapy or gene therapy or regenerative medicine, it's going to be where the science takes us. Where are the greatest advances? So pipelines are full, and there are these 100 billion euros spent by the industry every year on research and development, a third of which is still spent in Europe. It's not going down, but we have to be on our toes all the time to keep that coming. And these investments are largely aligned with needs. This is a plot of approvals by the European Medicines Agency on the x-axis, and you have the share of dailies, which is of course the measurement of disease burden. And you see here, look, you can see, okay, with the risk of going backwards instead, is that the pointer? Neuropsychiatric conditions, cardiovascular disease, malignant neoplasms. You have cancer up here, Now, some areas are largely aligned with needs because we didn't have much on infectious diseases going on, even though here we actually had quite a few approvals, I see. But that's particularly, I think, for hepatitis C and HIV, new products for HIV, but we don't have new antibiotics, which is something that we've tried to address or are addressing in IMI, and I'll have that on one of the coming slides. The R&D approaches are evolving. I meet many people that think they know us. So I meet health ministers and other officials, and they say, yeah, I know you. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, 1B, I know all of that. Well, things are changing. We're not doing these huge in-house research investments anymore. No, this is all about partnerships. And we've moved here. Here you see graphically, how we have evolved from consolidating. You see well, maybe I shouldn't talk about deal making a day like this, but there are deals made largely driven by R&D strength and R&D focus, or companies swapping research areas just to get the critical mass in the scientific field, not to get the critical mass primarily in marketing. No, so science is taking us places, and is also driving further changes in the industry structure, relying much more on small companies, relying much more on partnerships with academia, and partnership with one another, IMI, of course, being the biggest example of that. We see on the right-hand side here how the companies are today experimenting and really changing the approach to discovery and drug development. So this is moving. This is moving, and we, those in the audience that work in the industry, we need to be much better at telling people about this, because we are moving with the times. We are modern. We are moving with the times and adapting to societal needs and what's needed for the future. So of course IMI has been talked about. You wouldn't be here if you didn't know what it was. IMI 1 has already delivered big things. We're still putting things in IMI 1, as you probably know. We've just done that. So IMI 1 for a couple of years. We still have a lot of money to spend, but it's all been now allocated to various projects. There was a review in Nature Medicine a few months ago where you saw how the total 2 billion have been allocated, and I was very happy to see that 759 million of this pot is allocated to infectious diseases. This is an attempt to really boost antibiotics research, big time. We agreed with the European Commission 3 years ago. There was a meeting between President Barroso and 3 of my CEOs. And this was not prepared, it just suddenly came out of the meeting, that we should do something big. We should have a space program to bring new antibiotics to the market. The Commission launched an action plan in which one bit was the program in IMI, another bit was to work with member states on joint programming, and led by the Swedish agency. So this, and if you're interested in antibiotics and the whole issue about antimicrobial resistance and the problems, I'd suggest you take a close look at these projects we have, because we have something very interesting in there, also addressing the concerns raised by civil society, and that is that we need to have a solution for global access for these medicines. And we somehow need to decouple companies' revenues from selling, because you don't want people to sell too much of these, do you? No. You want these things to be kept in the safe until you need them. And you're not going to make any money by keeping them in the safe, so you better find another way of paying the industry to do this. We have a project in this, the call in this project is just being finalized now, looking at new business models for antibiotics, where, at least for outside North America and Europe, another way of actually pooling rights, maybe using a medicines patent pool, other ways of delinking revenues from selling. So I think there is an acknowledgement, and why I raise that is that this is understood. This need is understood from the side of the industry and of the European Commission, that when addressing areas like this where there's a global health need, we are building those models. But the first thing to prioritize here was to give life support, as I call it, to the very few programs that were going on. And that's what we are doing in IMI by actually allowing co-funding of priority antibiotics. But there's a lot of work to be done here. We're not finished at all. We need to find new incentives, new pathways, and new access models for antibiotics. So I'm very happy again to see that this was really high up there. Discovery, drug discovery, brain disorders, these are areas where you really can benefit by working together. Now, going to IMI2, I'm very proud to share with you, I'm not going to go through the document with you, but the IMI2 strategic research agenda that has been adopted. This has been developed over quite some time, actually, in successive consultations, iterative consultation with the research community, with the member states, with the Commission, with civil society, with patient groups, and the European Medicines Agency, making sure that we really are now focusing on the right things. And this is a good read. It's not only a good plan, but it's a good read. It's quite educational as well. You know, if you want to know what's going on in the world of drug discovery and drug development, and the world of regulatory and HTA even, you know, this is a good read. So I suggest you do take a look. The areas of prioritization are clearly based on both what I said before about consultations, but also based on the very excellent report last year, or this year. Was it this? No, it was last year, wasn't it? Anyhow, WHO updated the report on priority medicines for Europe and the world. It was kindly funded by the European Commission. And this report should really be the one that we should be held to account to. To be held to account against, maybe you say in English. So this is what we should be looking at. Are we really now delivering on this? And I will also suggest that this is a prioritization and an analysis by the WHO, which should be guiding regulatory agencies and should be guiding payers and HTA bodies in making sure that you incentivize these areas where there is a medical need. And the chapters in the strategic research agenda, without any priority order, maybe there was a slight bias in putting antibiotics first, but it's in here, and you see the list, and I think you can agree with me that this is a very good set of priorities for IMI2. So at the end of the day, this is all about moving towards precision medicine. We will go back and look at our textbooks that we even use today at pharmacy schools or medical schools. We'll look back and shake our heads. I mean, there's so much we don't know about our bodies. There's so much we don't know about diseases. Well, we don't tell our patients about that fact that we don't really know, but hence this cartoon. But the day will be there, and we see it coming now. It's estimated that maybe 3/4 of all the medicines in our pipelines are somehow targeted. And I use that term because they may not be tailor-made for an individual, but we will know for sure which part of the population they are best suited for. So we are moving in that direction, and IMI2 will, I think, be maybe one of the most important vehicles to advance on targeted medicine so that patients can get the right prevention and treatment at the right time, which is the title of our strategic research agenda. Thank you very much for your attention.